One consideration that has largely been overlooked until recently is the serious impact that disasters have on local socioeconomic groups, which can be much greater than the impact on those in our society who are wealthier. These extreme poverty and wealth distribution scenarios can and do have an impact on emergency and disaster management. Hart's inverse care law refers to the idea that people who require the most care actually receive the least and to a lesser standard. Some of the problems that are revealed by the inverse care law are that no market will ever shift corporate investment from where it is most profitable to where it's most needed. It also shows that there's inequalities in access to health care. People of low socioeconomic status are more vulnerable to disasters because they may live in poor quality, fragile housing, and thus a disaster such as a hurricane can destroy their livable structures much easier. They may lack any access to a banking system, and therefore if their homes are destroyed, they might lose their entire money savings. They also might not be able to afford insurance, which could lead to homelessness. Some scholars refer to the term frontline communities, which are those that experience the impacts of disaster firstly and most acutely. These so-called frontline communities, the ones that are most vulnerable and with the least amount of money, end up being involved in a circular relationship between disaster risk and poverty. In the article Greater Impact, How Disasters Affect the People of Low Socioeconomic Status, it notes in terms of economic loss to a disaster. Quote, the same loss affects poor people and marginalized people far more because their livelihoods depend on fewer assets. Their consumption is closer to subsistence levels. They cannot rely on saving to smooth the impacts. Their health and their education are at greater risk, and they may not need more time to recover and reconstruct. For example, disasters can destroy crops and seeds that make it harder to grow food in the future. How can we imagine any other future scenario for those losing their means to make money except a downward spiral of more poverty? The past historical policies have kind of left these people behind. And that's what we're trying to do now as emergency managers, is to make a commitment to increasing the safety and well-being of the people in poverty. We should also recognize the importance of understanding how closely efforts to address poverty are linked to efforts to improve disaster and post-disaster outcomes. We can commit to livelihood strengthening, including infrastructure development and basic services provisions. We can also focus on better mental health services for those that are already worried enough about their life condition, let alone when a disaster comes. Considering the historical policies of the past just don't seem to be working, it's time for a change. It's the right thing to do.